All right. Testing mic 1, 2. Normally, that's what we do.
Okay.
uh, yeah. Sometimes you go to functions and people are right away testing their microphones and
Mics
everything to see whether everything is,
in place. Yeah.
is in place. Yeah, right. So how is everybody doing? I know everybody's doing great. We are protecting ourselves. We are being safe and healthy from the pandemic. We are strong, and today, a beautiful day. And yeah, I'm excited to have Dr. Jima. If I'm pronouncing your name wrongly, just let me know.
You're right. You're right.
Okay. Because I don't know what some people may say Jima and some people may say
Yeah.
Jima. So
Yeah.
what is the right way to pronounce it? Is it Jima or Jima?
I think Jima is right.
Jima. Okay. All right. Nice to meet you. And I'm so excited about today's topic, life, culture, and wildlife in Ghana. Of course, it might resonate to other African countries, and we will have some good time. Let me get together the main man, Mr. Jima, on in a moment, but he is the director, stakeholder, and Ecotourism Wildlife Commission of Forestry Commission, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Wildlife Division of the Forestry Commission.
Okay. All right. Great. So, today our discussion is going to be interesting. We're just going to pick and choose whichever place that, might come up. Everybody online and on Facebook, on YouTube can also throw their questions in. And yeah, we will have an interesting moment. So when we talk about wildlife, what is it? Maybe we can start from that point and then we can go on from there. So when we say wildlife, yep.
Okay, so thanks, Mr. Fureta, for the nice intro. And I must say, I'm here with my colleague, Cornelia.
Okay, hi, Cornelia.
From the Wildlife Division of the Forestry Commission. And so we are here together, and then we'll be sharing ideas and having a conversation with you.
Sure.
So like you rightly said, when we say wildlife, what easily comes to mind is the flora and fauna basically in the wild. So they are not domesticated. So that is
Doc,
what the
excuse me, can you increase your volume a little bit? Okay. It looks down a little bit. If it can come up, then that would be great on our side. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Is it good?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, when we talk about wildlife, like you rightly said, it's about flora and fauna, plants and animals. Naturally in their natural habitats in the wild.
Okay.
So they are not domesticated. And so it is the environment we find ourselves in. And typically when we talk about that, we are looking at the ecosystems we have around us, the forests, the mountains, and the kind of plants and animals they contain. And so with the Forestry Commission, the Wildlife Division is responsible for managing the wildlife estates that we have in Ghana, meaning our national parks, the zoos, the protected areas. And so these are the things we manage in Ghana as far as wildlife is concerned. And then the management of it to bring out its importance also coming. So that is briefly what I can say about wildlife.
Okay. Wow. So I know that in Ghana specifically, we have various sectors. We have various divisions within the wildlife sector. Would you want to share with us some of these divisions that we have, or something like that?
Right. So in the wildlife division, and we can start from the Forestry Commission as a whole.
Okay.
See, the Forestry Commission is that commission which falls under the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
So in Ghana, we have the mother ministry, which is the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources.
Okay.
And under the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, we have three key commissions: the Forestry Commission, the Lands Commissions, and the Minerals Commission. Then under the Forestry Commission, we have the Wildlife Division. Okay. So that is the division that is responsible for wildlife matters, so to speak. Anything concerned with wildlife, the Wildlife Division is concerned. But the Wildlife Division also has smaller units. And so we have a unit for protecting the parks or the protected areas. We also have a unit that deals with the finances, looking at the commercial development, what we can get out of the wildlife. Then now we have created the stakeholder and the Ecotourism Directorate, because the country has seen that it is not enough for us to look at the consumptive value of the forest. Now we want to look at the non-consumptive values, where ecotourism plays a key role. And so now we have a new directorate, which is the Ecotourism Directorate, that houses also the stakeholder engagement. So we see that the communities are important, the private sector is important. So how can we harness the importance of all this grouping to promote the non-consumptive value of the forest, so that it is not only about timber extraction, but also how do we get benefits, the economic benefits from the natural heritage by way of wildlife that we also manage. So in effect, this is the setup of the commission and then the Wildlife Division.
Okay, so picking up from the last point that you made, how is that process being materialized to making sure that these reserves are being protected and are much beneficial to the country and of course the people as a whole?
Right. So in the past, the policy emphasis had been on conservation, protecting, preservation of the wildlife estate, which is very good, because without conserving the biodiversity we have, we can't get all the benefits that goes with it. But conservation simply means wise use of a resource. So we were quite regimental on the conservation and protecting, but we didn't put much emphasis on the values, the economic values that we can derive from protecting these wildlife and the biodiversity. So now the paradigm shift is for us to make use of the non-consumptive value, such as ecotourism, and so that we can also get enough revenue and use that revenue also to conserve the wildlife. Because the government on its own cannot continuously fund management and protection activities. So the time is ripe for us to also look at the other side, where we can bring in investment, revenue through the non-consumptive value, and then we plow the revenue we get back into conservation activities. Because conservation is quite expensive, and relying only on the government to do conservation will not bring us the desired result that we all need. So now we need all stakeholders to come on board: the private sector, the government agencies, the NGOs, the environmental NGOs, philanthropists, individuals that are interested in wildlife matters. So we need all of us to come together so that we can chart a new course of realizing the untapped benefits that the non-consumptive value of wildlife can give. Yeah.
And so I know you have alluded to that before, but would you also expand a little bit on some of these benefits that you just alluded to? What are some of these benefits that are there?
All right. So let me generally say the let's say importance of wildlife conservation, and so that we can be seeing some of them. So what I can also say as far as the importance of wildlife conservation is for instance, through wildlife conservation, we are able to enhance food security because we are aware of the various food chains and food web that we have. That the animals definitely will eat the grasses, like that, the herbivores. Then the what do you call, the carnivores will also feast on the herbivores, and the chain goes on and on and on. And the vultures will also feed on the carcasses the carnivores leave behind. And so if we do a proper wildlife conservation, we make sure that food security is enhanced, and then the ecosystem is also preserved. Because if there's no balance in the system, then we are going to have problem with enhancing food security. So wildlife conservation, that is plants and animals, conserving them plays a very important role in that respect, especially when you relate it to pollination by certain insects. These plants that we see them growing in their native area, they need to bring offspring, they need to reproduce themselves. And it is through these agents, these insects, these birds that do the seed dispersal, the insects moving from one nectar to find nectar from one flower to the other, they help in pollination. Then they also help in spreading the seeds and also propagating new plants. And that's why it is important that we conserve wildlife. So by way of promoting pollination and also enhancing food security, we see the importance of wildlife. And also the medicinal value. So many times people think it is only the plants that provide medicines, but the animals also have their own place in there. The fauna also help us to get certain medicines to treat ailment. For instance, the venom from cobra. It's interesting to know that it can be used to treat leprosy.
Really?
Really. Very, very potent for treating leprosy. And those in the pharmaceutical industry are aware of that. And some lobsters, crustaceans, are also good as antifungal medications. And these are all coming from wildlife. So both the plants and the animals. For the plants, there are numerous that we can count. So the wildlife, we talked about both plants and animals, are very, very important. So we have to conserve them for medicinal value. Aesthetic benefit. People travel to long places just to see wildlife, and they feel relaxed seeing animals in the wild. People go on vacations and they are looking for where they can see nature. South Africa will come into mind, Kenya, Tanzania, Costa Rica, Thailand, the list can go on and on. And you can see that in all these places, it is nature that is driving the movement. People want to see animals, people want to see plants, people want to see the mountains. And so when we preserve wildlife and we preserve our environment, it has enormous benefits by way of aesthetic values. Okay? We can also talk about protecting ecological stability and balance, which relates to the first one that I talked, because for instance, the plants and animals in the ecosystem, whenever there is this exchange of gases in the ecosystem, it is because of the plants and animals performing their roles well. When there's excessive CO2 in the atmosphere, the plants take it up and they build food, and the animals in turn eat the food. So you can see that if we maintain plants and animals in their natural habitat and conserve them, we are going to make sure that there is stability in the ecosystem, because some of these mechanisms, natural mechanisms of gaseous exchange, are going to be done well. We can also talk about education and learning. When we do proper wildlife conservation, we're able to educate our kids about animals, about their plants and their importance. So right from the cradle, if they know the importance of plants and animals, they will have a natural heart towards these wildlife. And then they will have a heart of protecting and caring for them. So it is important that we do a lot of education on wildlife so that people will see the importance. Economic benefits, we've just mentioned some, the ecotourism. It's so huge. Recently I chanced on a document that tried to spell out the kind of growing importance ecotourism is on the global continent, and even in the Africa region in particular. As at 1990, some few statistics, the visitation to the African continent was around 14.7 million visitors coming to Africa to see things for themselves, the natural. By 2000, it has risen to 26 million visitors. Then by 2014, we were hitting 56 million visitors. And then majority of these, when you look at the international tourism receipts that are coming, as of 2014, we were receiving something close to $36 billion in the region.
Wow.
And so the potential for ecotourism as an economic activity in the region is so huge. And then you can break it down to the share of Africa in this. And it was close to 5%. And even in the sub-region, it was still rising. So the importance of wildlife conservation, it's so enormous that we can't underestimate them, especially by way of tourism and economic benefit. And even the jobs that they create. Look at the value chain that tourism brings. People will look for accommodation and it creates jobs. People will look for food to eat. People will want to sit in transport to move from one place to the other. And these are all part of the value chain that ecotourism can provide through wildlife conservation. And so it's very, very, very important. We can even talk about our cultural heritage.
Yeah.
Through wildlife conservation, we are able to preserve our heritage and culture. You know, the life of African and in Ghana in particular, our lives are intertwined with wildlife through various ceremonies. In our marriage ceremonies, you can see the talk of wildlife. In our traditional palace settings, in our so many things that we do, you can see wildlife being used as a symbol. Our totems. Every clan, for instance, in Ghana has a totem, and the totem is associated with animals. And so, for instance, the bravery of certain tribes in Ghana have the lion as their totem. So it symbolizes ferociousness, the bravery. We have the buffaloes also symbolizing some of the clans. Myself, I belong to the Ekwana clan.
Oh, okay.
And our symbol
is that the antelope? Oh wait, sorry.
That is the buffalo.
The bush cow. Sorry,
the Ekova is that is the buffalo.
The buffalo, right? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
So they are warriors, and then they never give up.
All right.
And then you
very
just
ferocious,
cannot exactly, and you just cannot push them away. They will just stand firm. We have some also with the leopard as their totem. And so they are always battle ready. And when they go to battle, they never give up unless you kill it or he kills you. So it tells us that our whole life is intertwined or synchronized with the wildlife and the totems that goes with it. And so we hold culture dear to our hearts as Ghanaians and Africa in general. If you listen to our stories, our bedtime stories, as in the Western we call it, our folklores, they are all using animals and then portraying their wisdom, portraying their wits, portraying their bravery. And it kind of sits well with us in Africa. And then it makes us have attachment to those animals. And then we find a sense of responsibility to keep those animals intact and preserve them, because our very life or our existence depends on those animals. So the moment those animals are not there, we believe that we are also not there. And so our values systems are all intertwined around those things. So the importance of wildlife.
All right. So I will come back to the to wildlife in relation to, you know, cultural systems and values, and as you alluded to, like the totems and all that. But going back to the importance, how are we making sure that these importance are readily, you know, available to people, or of course the locals, and how is the education going? Because of course people might find interest or might find valuable in a certain concept or a certain activity if they are able to get enough resources, information about that particular activity. So how, through what processes are we making sure that this information goes down to the people?
Right, that is also very important, and it's a very good point you have raised. And so basically I'll say the channel is communicating. So how do we get that information across for people to know the importance of wildlife. So basically, by way of education in our schools, it's being taught.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we, as the division of the wildlife, goes around various schools, especially the primary and the secondary schools. And we educate them on the importance of wildlife. So we have sessions that the school authorities give us a lot of time for us to go and teach. And sometimes in the curriculum of the students also, they have it in there with occasional education also that we do. So education is key, and we communicate through education. We go to the schools and also in the communities. Also, we have special programs that we visit communities and tell them about the importance of wildlife. So those living close to the wildlife parks and the wildlife reserves, the protected areas, they come in close contact with this wildlife. And so we make sure that the French communities are well educated on the importance of wildlife. And so even if there's human-wildlife conflict, they know what to do. And so that nobody sees each other as an enemy, but we have to think about coexistence. So we teach them about basic wildlife management rudiments so that they know how to coexist with the animals at the community level. We do that a lot.
Okay.
Then now also the social media is coming up.
Of course.
So the wildlife division also, we have able lieutenants who are doing that work, Cornelia and the team. So they have various wildlife apps, that they use that as communicating to the populace and then the general people about the importance of wildlife. So you have, I think we are on Twitter, we are on the various Facebook, the YouTube. So we make use of all these channels and then make sure that we reach the larger community on that.
All right.
But there's more room for improvement.
Sure. We're working things out, and definitely African Live Arts here to promote tourism, art forms, and history in Africa. So if you're interested, you can just log on to www.africanliveart.com and find a class, enjoy, and hopefully very soon wildlife in Ghana is going to be part of us, and then we're going to move forward. So going back, I said that I was going to ask a question about culture, maybe tradition and wildlife. In some cases we've had, I'm sure we've had issues where people, for livelihood's sake, or for economic gains, they chase some of these animals, they, basically get them for food, right? Whilst, of course, wildlife organization is trying to preserve these animals. So even sometimes, I'm not sure whether it's poachers or encroachers. Is it poachers? Yeah. Poachers, yes. They go in and hunt some of these animals for various, sometimes even medicinal purposes, or for meat, economic gains and all that. How are we able to find a relationship between the needs of the people and the preservation of our wildlife?
Right. See, that is also very, very important. And then, like you alluded, you see, we always preach that conservation does not mean don't touch. Conservation simply means wise use of a resource. So if you look into our laws, our policies, we make room for that people can get access to certain wildlife depending on their level of protection status for their dietary needs, for their protein needs, because people need to survive. And so that is well communicated. But there are rules and regulations to everything. And that is where we expect the populace to understand it, because it is a matter of sustainability. So how do you get access to the resource, but at the same time make sure that you can keep them for future use? And so that you don't, like you rightly mentioned, you don't poach them illegally and then do things that are not right. And so we have various groupings, categories of the animals that can be assessed in one form or the other. Some animals are wholly protected. It means we don't allow you to hunt them for that purposes. And there are animals that you can hunt for food. And we even issue permits to that effect.
Okay.
And so we educate them about the various type of fauna they can have access to, those that are restricted. And then they are all in our law, so we break it down for the ordinary person to understand. Then we also ask them to register with us if they want to trade in bush meat, so that we know them as a unit, and then we will find a way to help them. Because you can even make ranches where certain animals that are delicacy, we can help them raise more of those animals so that the attention will not be too much on those on the wild, but we can domesticate some so that people have access to them and without necessarily hunting some of these animals. Because some protected animals all over the world that we are keeping watch on, and you go and hunt them and then you destroy their future propagation. It worries their conservation.
Yes.
And so these are the things that we try to educate them on, because we even have laws, regulations such as the close season in Ghana, where between 1st August and December, we prevent people from hunting. And then
hunting too.
Yes, with the exception
I thought it was only in the fishery department.
No, in the wildlife division we do that.
Really?
Yes, with the exception of animals like the grass cutter that are in abundance, so you can handle. So we do all these things so that we preserve the animals, because during those periods we believe that the animals might be in their breeding season and they will be with their young also. So it's important that within that span of time we allow the animals to have their rest, and so that they can breed more, so that we can also go in to get the animals. So we keep on educating them, even in our local language dialect. And so that when we go down we do it in our native language, so that they understand it better, and then they also appreciate the importance of it. So all in all, we have been educating them and then letting them know the importance of conservation. You can have it, but in a regulated manner.
Yeah, I mean, I stand to be corrected. I know I have lived in Domahinkro for quite some time, and in those times when I was in primary school, we used to hear of hunters going to the farm, going to the forest to hunt animals and come back. And we also heard of various situations whereby some of these hunters will tell us different stories that, okay, there are some animals that are not supposed to be touched. There are some animals that, are supposed to be allowed to live in various circumstances. For example, if you go see the baby of an antelope, of course, you don't want to maybe hurt it. You want the animal to grow, or a pregnant animal or something like that. So I believe, and I stand to be corrected, that within even the traditional system, they had ways and means of preserving these forms even before before these laws even actually came into being. Am I right to say that?
No, you are definitely right on that. So like you rightly mentioned, even before pre-colonial times, before we had our formal policies and direction, our forefathers were practicing conservation in their own way. So we had sacred groves, areas that you cannot go and do anything because they are reserved for kings and queens and the royalties. They were all forms of conservation. Even there are days of the week that you cannot go into the forest to do any hunting. It's also a means of doing conservation, you see. And then even in those times, they had their own traditional close season, periods within which they will not even allow anybody to go to the forest to hunt. So they understood the traditional system of conservation, but they were doing all these things to protect the animals. And when they do, they add certain spiritual values to it, and which more or less brings some fear in people that you might die. But these are all things, that system that we established to make sure that people do not go beyond the boundaries, and they work perfectly. You see, those times also the communities were smaller, people knew each other, populations were low, and so it was easy to control. Now populations have skyrocketed, and those measures and values are coming down because people, let me just use the word, are being westernized. And so people are now don't even want to believe some of these things, traditions that was handed over to us from generation. So the whole society has become dynamic and it's changing. So people's perception is changing. And now people want to question everything. In our time, when they tell us this from your grandfather, you don't even question, you accept it. But now you tell a child that don't go into this forest
I'm
around
coming
6
from there.
PM. Exactly. And you ask you, but why can't I go into the forest at this time when I'm protected, when I have this? See, so the whole societal changing is also bringing a dimension that we have to make things real to people and then break down some of this myth into practical realities for them to understand that this is why we are saying this. And then there's wisdom why our forefathers chose that path for us to follow. So the dynamism of the society is also telling us for us to change our ways of addressing some of these traditional conservation methods so that it rhymes with the existing things of this.
So now I know that, of course, you know, still staying on the relationship between tradition and, of course, some of these wildlife conservations of reservations. With issues concerning various traditions, let's say the is it the Winneba people? They celebrate.
Yeah, the Winneba people. Yeah, the
Abuachiri Festival. Yes.
Right.
Now, I'm just using that as an example to probably other traditional activities that might, one way or the other, affect these wildlife. How is that being controlled in some of these traditions?
Okay, so that is a very interesting one. So if we go by the history of the Abuachiri Festival, where two groups, so to speak, go in search of the bushback that we call, then those times, because the forests were well protected, the animals were available to catch. And so normally it didn't take too long, then they can easily get a catch. But if you trace from history to now, it is increasingly becoming difficult.
Scarce
For them to get access to these animals. And sometimes it takes a lot of skills and so many things for them to come to terms and be able to get those catch. It is simply telling us that we are eroding our wildlife. For that matter, that particular species that is being used for the Abuachiri, the bushback. And so there's a need for us to conserve. And then surprisingly, the short period where they have followed conservation rules and then have protected those forests, they have gone to find those animals of interest there. But if we allow things like bushfires, indiscriminate logging, poaching, as you said, to go on, then very soon the relevance of that festival will be eroding, because then people will not even see the value of that. So because it was done for a specific reason. And in this area, my colleague, Cornelia, has done extensive work on that. So if she wants to chip in a word or so, I think it would be appropriate for her to also chip in something.
Hi, Miss Cornelia.
On this Abuachiri thing.
Are you there?
Hello, Cornelia.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Right, so if you want to chip in something on the Abuachiri Festival, that would be interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
Welcome here.
Thank you. The Abuachiri Festival, if we go back into history, before we go to the antelope, it was actually a human being that needed to be sacrificed. Okay. And pleading with the gods, they opted for a leopard. And it was a live leopard that had to be presented. And the people realized that to capture a leopard, they rather lost more life than to even sacrifice one person to the gods. So they pleaded again, and then it was the antelope, the bushback, that the gods requested. And with the festival, if you go to Winneba, which is actually Wendy Bay, which is incorrupted to Winneba, but the indigenous name is Simpa. You go to Simpa, they have two Asafo groups. When one group has a catch, it represents bumper harvest for, let's say, crops. And then another represents a bumper harvest for fish. So every year they pray that there should be 2 catch so that we have lots of fish and then lots of food
Really?
for the community. Yes. So with the Simpa area, we have the Muni Pumazi Ramsar site that the Wildlife Division protects. And that is where they have the hunting ground. And in actual fact, you can't go by road. We have the Pumazi side, there is a Muni side, and there is a river separating these two communities. And then whenever people will have to cross to the Pumazi side, then you have to walk through the water to go there. You can't go by car. So it's an interesting thing, and I call everyone to join us in Winneba for the festival next year.
All right. Oh, okay. which day is it?
I'll send the date to you. I think it's in it's past already. So
okay, yes. Some people are not from the region, so they may want to know which region. Which region is it?
Winneba is in the central region. It's in the central region of Ghana.
Yeah, central region of Ghana. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, going back a little bit. You did talk about pre-colonial era and the fact that, you know, traditional leaders, hunters, you know, as we call it, Obofo in the Akan language, had a way of preserving these wildlife, and of course, moving on from there to, you know, colonial and post-colonial era, there were new forms. Now, was there any measures put in place during colonial era and also post-colonial era to add some value to these preservations, to add some stringent, you know, policies to these preservations, or how did it move through these times?
Right. So the pre-colonial era was primarily controlled by the traditional system.
Traditional leaders, yes.
Traditionally, so the chiefs, the elders had a full control of that system. And so even for them even to regulate the kind of hunting that was going on, every hunter that goes to hunt, whatever you had as your catch, there's a particular portion of the meat that you have to present it to the chief. And so they use this as an indication to know the number of animals being killed within a particular period, and so that they will use their traditional system to put the regulation on. So it was like a bylaw, a rule within the community that all hunters, you know, when you go for hunting, there's a particular portion that you have to bring to the chief. The juicy parts, so to speak, sometimes.
Right.
So it was a way of regulating and knowing the animal catches over a period, and so that they can put in place the close season that we now have formally, that we have also instituted. So the traditional system had their own way, and they could even tell how many times hunters should be going to the field, to the forest, to do the catching. So they had their own way of regulating that practice of hunting, so that it was basically for subsistence, to feed themselves
and their family,
and their family in the middle. So more or less, almost every community had 1 or 2 hunters within the system. And so the idea of commercialization was not the intended purpose. And so it kept people to do the hunting for subsistence, to feed themselves, and so that they don't go in for several kills. But like we said, population growth and also consumer preferences over the years. Then the urban centers trying to get more bush meat from the villages over the years, post-colonial, led to this, let me put the word, over-exploitation. And so that is where the formal systems like the Wildlife Division, the Forestry Commission, also, we had the various laws to protect wildlife. So some of our earlier laws predates 1961, the Act 43, the Wild Animals Preservation Act. And so these were put in place so that people do not do excessive hunting of wildlife. And then we also had the Wildlife regulation, wildlife conservation regulation that came up in the 70s, and then wildlife reserves regulation as well. So certain areas were put together, or were put aside as wildlife reserves, wildlife parks, so that they are controlled, they are managed, and people cannot do hunting rampantly, but it will be regulated. And so when we post the colonial times, when we entered into the time that we are in now, that is where policies, laws also came up to do the regulation. But hitherto, they were basically controlled by the traditional authorities through the traditional systems of protection. Yes. But now we have formal written laws that are gazetted in our national laws, so that everybody knows. So that when we fall foul to the law, we take it to the law courts, the judge will stand on the law and prosecute you. So hitherto, it was all done by the traditional system at the Ahimfie, the palace, so to speak. And then your matter is dealt with there and there. Yeah.
Okay, great. So again, this African Live Arts, you're connecting to various tourist sites and art forms in Africa. And of course, on our YouTube and Facebook channel, we discuss various issues with regards to tourism and art forms. So we are here with Dr. Jima, and having some interesting conversations right here. So my question would be, okay, for example, I am from somewhere, other than Africa. I come to Ghana. What is the first place you would want me to go, and why? In terms of tourism, but I mean in terms of wildlife. Now, also, I realized that in our conversation we are only talking about animals.
Right.
I mean, it's my fault. I think I'm interested in more animals and all that. But of course, I know that as you alluded to from the beginning, we're talking about animals and flowers, plants. Plants. So so now we're going to be mixing the two. So again, I come to Ghana. Where would you want me to go first, and why? And I know that your interest might be different from Miss Cornelia. So Miss Cornelia, get ready, and then we'll come to you. Perhaps where you want your visitor to go and why.
Right. No, that is very interesting. You see, we most of the times we prefer the visitor to make a preference, but we'll give you a menu for you to choose from, because people have tastes, people have what they
but this
want.
time we're talking about your subjective taste.
Right. That is interesting. And so me being a conservationist and an eco-tourist person as well, I will not want to box people too much. But what I want to tell them is that if you look at the diversity of the ecosystems that we have in Ghana, it's so interesting. So normally I want people to appreciate the kind of ecosystems we have in Ghana, because every ecosystem in Ghana has a unique fauna and flora that you can see. And so even if you look at wildlife, if we zero in, the various regions of Ghana have different things to offer. For instance, if you go to the northern part of Ghana, where we have one of our iconic sites, the Muli National Park, it's over close to 5,000 square kilometers.
And so did I hear that space is bigger than the whole of Accra?
That space is bigger than the whole of Greater Accra. It's actually about 4,577 square kilometers. It's bigger than the entire Greater Accra. And the vegetation there is typical grassland ecology, ecosystem. And so animals that are, or game that are close to what you see in Tanzania, parts of Kenya, you can see them some there. Although we cannot
examples of those animals.
Good. We cannot boast of the big five, but you can see the elephants. The majestic elephant is there for you to see in the Muli National Park. You can see leopards. Very amazing. The hyenas are also there. Various forms of carnivore that you can see. The jackals, they are there for you to see. Very beautiful. You can see also the ungulates. Several of them are there for you to see. You can see the baboons, what have you, the warthogs, the range of animals that you can see in the Muli National Park is interesting. The buffaloes, the list can go on and on and on. but it is unique to that ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
If you come to the southern part of Ghana, like say Kakum, that has also gained traction with a lot of people. Like you rightly said, you are also looking at forest. And then the forest also comes with it animals. You know, we have savanna type of elephant and we have forest type of elephant. So in Kakum, you are going to see the forest type of elephant. Whilst when you go to Muli, you are going to see the savanna type of elephant. So you can imagine the interesting nature. So you would want to first pay a visit to the north, then come down south and see how the forest elephants look like. And it's amazing for you to know because of the forest and the trees there, those elephants tend to be a bit smaller compared to the elephants in the savanna areas where, let's say, the grasses are in abundance for them to eat and browse and on and sit. So it is also interesting when you have these variety and the things you want to see. But apart from the animals that you see in the north, in the south, the Kakum can boast of its canopy walkway, and people love it. You know, we have some tree houses also serving as accommodation that people want to spend night on trees. You can see the interesting thing that you can get from the forest zone and that in the savanna zone. So there are nice places you can see. So I've mentioned Kakum, I've mentioned the Muli National Park. There is the Chabobo National Park also in the Volta region, another beautiful place, nice scenery. You can also come to the Shire Hills Resource Reserve, wonderful place also to visit. That is not a big area, but some wonderful caves, the tradition there for you to see, it's amazing. You know, we even have introduced some animals like the zebras at the Shire Hills, the ostriches, they are there, the baboons.
So with those animals, you get them from different places of Africa and then you bring them there? Okay.
And you bring them there.
And how are they doing? I mean, with the different environments and the weather and all that?
Yeah, they are doing fantastic. So we are careful about which animals to bring where, because we study the animals, we know the animal behavior, we know the ecology of the place, the ecology of where they are coming from. So as much as possible, we mimic similar ecologies. And we make sure that when they come, they'll feel at home, and also bring them quite in the juvenile stage for them to adapt over time. And so that as they grow, then they find a place more adaptable to live in. So there are several places that we can see.
So do we have lions anywhere in Ghana?
That has been a very interesting question that people ask always. No, there are evidence of lions in the Muli National Park that I mentioned. And we have people with living testimony that had come into contact with lion in some of the communities living around Muli.
Currently or in time past?
In time past.
Okay.
In time past. But during night game viewing, we've installed a lot of camera traps. And so that we can take those inventories, but some of the animals are nocturnal. The lion includes the big cats. And so their movements can be very difficult to know, especially when their immediate environment is threatened a bit. So there is a strong belief that we may have a few of them hiding in one or two places, but we want to scientifically confirm them. But there are signs that they are there because the dynamics of the animal populations is telling us a story, because the hyenas are becoming more in the Muli National Park. And we know that, you know, whenever the hyena population exceeds that of the lion, it threatens the survival of the lion.
Oh, really?
The lion, yes, get a catch, the hyenas will come and they want to take it away.
Yeah. I mean, when you mention hyenas,
exactly. Their numbers.
Because I know I've been to Muli National Park before and we're just walking, you know, in the desert, like, hyenas? Okay, I'm not friends with hyenas.
So there's a lot of things we are doing underground to establish the presence of the lion. But for the leopards, they are easy to notice them, and so we are on it. But we want to be
Miss Cornelia, where would you be? What would be your favorite place for somebody to get to, and why?
Well, why do you want to push me? That was not said.
I mean, I'm just trying to tease you a little bit to
okay.
see if you have a specific preference.
Okay, so I'll say I have my top 5 out of the 23 sites that we manage.
Okay.
Really, I will tell you, go to Muli, because most people who want to come to Ghana wants to have the, let's say, the South Africa, East African safari experience. So go to Muli. There you will get that experience, if not for all the big 5, at least with the elephant. And Forest of Travel Channel once told us that the closest you can get to an African elephant is in Muli National Park.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
So
that's right.
I would say go to Muli. But if you want to blend, let's say, culture, history, archaeology, and wildlife, then I'll tell you, come to Shire Hills.
Oh, okay.
So this is a destination where we have archaeological findings dating back to 1000 BC.
Really?
This is a destination where people have lived. We have their architecture still standing. On top of the Manya Hill is a lake.
Really?
Am I painting a beautiful picture?
Oh, yeah.
We in partnership with the archaeology department, University of Ghana, they have exhumed some bones. And according to them, that is where we got to know that there were even ostriches living in Shire Hills, but they are now extinct. We've introduced some. And when they exhumed the body, it was more than 6 feet, but they said they checked, and from the remains, they got to know it was a female. And she wore this ostrich eggshells bracelet on the hand. She was buried with it. There are a whole lot of stuff to hear, read, and learn of when you get to Shire Hills. The terracotta arts are also there that has been exhumed. Some from Muli National Park brought in there. So it's a combination of nature, history, culture, a whole lot. It's actually not just safari, but more of history and more of archaeology. Then we come to Kakum. Everybody wants adventure. Everybody wants to walk the walkway. The first in Africa, it is there. But not just the walkway. Go on the Ebony Trail and you will see the Kuntine roots and stuff. And you know our hunters, they used to run away from the leopards and they hide in those root system.
Really?
Spectacular root system. Oh, yes. So we get to Ankasa, and it is not Ankasa, but Enkasa. You know why?
No.
Because there were dwarfs in there, and if you talk, you will be captured. So Enkasa has been corrupted to Ankasa.
Okay.
Interestingly, there are a lot of stories to hear when you visit this area. So I'm giving you the top 5 being Mole, Shai, Kakum, Ankasa, and then Chabobo. Chabobo is where you get the Breast Mountain. We're looking at the 2nd highest peak in Ghana. And if you go to it is a national park that borders a national park. It's on the border with Togo. And then Togo is Mao Fazal Bakassa National Park. And there was a year we had elephants coming from Togo all the way through Chabobo National Park going to the communities.
Really?
So it's like you'll be in Chabobo and you end up in Togo and not knowing you are in Togo. You don't have a visa, but you've gone there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll give you the top 5.
All right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So is there any link between the Chabobo? The Chabobo is the Ghanaian park, right?
Yes, it is.
And then is there any link between that park and that of Togo? Is there any relationship in terms of management and all that?
Yes, there is an established relationship with their boards. They have these boards that the transboundary board that manages. There is.
All right. Apart from what Connie said, apart from the Chabobo in Ghana and the one in Togo, we have similar one also up north there, the Mole and the Nazinga in Burkina and the Côte d'Ivoire.
Really?
So yeah, recently we had a meeting amongst the park managers of these three different nationalities. And it was amazing and interesting. Common geography, common animal species distribution, and even common migratory routes of the animals, because animals, they have no borders. You know, they move according to the seasons and the exigencies of their needs. And so, the need for it to form this transboundary corridors to enhance the protection of these animals, because they keep on moving from one place to the other. So now Africa, I tell you, is one big country, not a continent. So we really need to harness our potentials and also collaborate in our management approaches so that we keep these wildlife intact and well protected and conserved. So it's so interesting to know about that too.
All right. Okay. Everybody joining in again, this African Live Arts YouTube channel. And of course, we're also on Facebook. We do this every Sunday to connect to various tourist sites and, art forms, history all together. And next week, we're actually going to have, guess what? Kwame Nkrumah's birthday is September 21st, right? 1909. And so next week, we're going to have a discussion on the contribution of Kwame Nkrumah to the arts and tourism in Ghana and perhaps in Africa. So join us. I'm going to be sending the flyer, and then we will have more discussion in that space. Now I'm going to open up for everybody in the live chat. If you want to ask your question, let me see your hand up. I saw Faisal's hand up earlier on. Faisal, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? I think you have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Jima. This was really exciting and very educative too. I am particularly concerned about some here. Yeah. Talking about ecotourism, because it's an area that I'm very much interested in. And my first question is, how has the current climate change affected the development of ecotourism, especially looking at the relations between the community and the wildlife, the natural environment? So that is my first question, and I'll wait for your response then. I'll continue with the second one.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Faisal.
That is a very, very, very important question Faisal has asked. See, the ramification of the climate change, it's really having a toll on biodiversity, and then which by extension affects wildlife conservation. Because as you rightly will know, we see flooding in certain areas that we used to have no flooding, and it is affecting the fauna and flora population. We are seeing more intense drought, which hitherto was not the case. And so many wildlife are also suffering as a result of this climate change, because the heating of the atmosphere, as you rightly know, is bringing us so much problems, because it is causing drought, and drought will imply that the animals are going to get water stress. And the moment animals get water stress in the park, it's such a big, big, big problem, because some may die, and also some may even want to leave that habitat and go elsewhere, and they become ferocious and they just want to leave that, and that causes a lot of human-wildlife conflict. Because hitherto you expected them to be in certain habitat, but because the habitat is not conducive, they are also desperate, and they move and they come into contact with humans, and then the human-wildlife conflict starts. And recently we are picking some human-wildlife conflict in the borders of our national park. And some of the remote causes are because of climate change, because the harsh conditions, the animals are forced to move away. They are not getting food, so they see nearby crop land close to the park, there's food, then they'll move to it, because their immediate environment is not giving them those physiological needs. And so it's a very, very important topic that you've raised about the effect of climate change on wildlife conservation, which, good enough, we also have a climate change directorate at the Forestry Commission. And so
Okay.
we are working in close collaboration with them. And so there are projects that have come up through the climate change that require the division to work with them. And so we are creating, where there's water stress, we are even creating opportunity to get dug out wells for the animals, and so that in drought times they can get access to water. But since the climate change is already with us, so now we rather have to move to adaptation. We have to adapt to live with the climate change, because the drivers of the climate change are already caught up with us. So now we have to rather adapt and live within the confines of the climate change, which I think is a very important topic you have raised. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think you've actually touched on the second part of the question, which is the conflict aspect. I, for one, happen to work with a community in the northern region, that is the Tungu Tenzu, and it was conceived as an ecotouristic area. But as time evolved, there were a lot of conflict, and one of the things that I sort of found was the idea of sustainability, like putting things in sort of equilibrium, so to speak. Right. There's a certain expectation of the community, and then the community also wants certain expectation from the Forest Commission. So for me, my question is, do you think that ecotourism, one, has, I need to rephrase this word, the policies, the policies of developing ecotourism, do you think that they are sustainable in all areas, or do you think that in some community like Tungu Tenzu that I have mentioned, ecotourism is one of the viable ways for the community? Because the idea is that a community needs to sustain itself economically, and then if the environment is seen to be, quite rich in aesthetic value, and as a way of also sort of conserving the wildlife, it's designed as an ecotouristic area. But as time evolves, it tends to sort of also undermine the community group. For example, when there is encroachment, when there is development in the area, like building sort of modern houses, which maybe tourists will not want to see that. They want to see the so-called pristine environment in order to appreciate the aesthetic, side of the environment. So do you think, like, that's the question, do you think that some of these policies actually would help in the long run? Thank you.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I think that's also a very brilliant question, because like you rightly put it, it's all about balance, and right. It's all about making sure that you are fulfilling all the let's say the 3 E's, or let's say the economic value is taken care of, economic and social, the environment is also taken care of, right. And then let's say the livelihoods of the people are also taken care of, so that people then will appreciate that intervention of ecotourism. So we always say that the ecotourism intervention that you put in place, you should make sure that you take into consideration community needs. Yes. So that the community will have some direct benefits from that ecotourism intervention. So if, for instance, you set up an ecotourism intervention, you even want to employ people from the communities as local guides, so that then there's an attachment to it, and then they get direct benefit incentives from playing that role. When they see that, then they will give you all the support for that establishment to go on. But if I live in the community, you come for ecotourism and there's no benefits, they may end up sabotaging your effort. Exactly. So we have always planned that whatever intervention is coming in, the private sector, the government sector, and the communities should form a tripartite, and so that every stakeholder's interest is taken care of, and so that the value chains that will be created will factor in community livelihoods, benefit, jobs creation, and so that once the people see the benefit that goes with it, then they are good to go. Factor in community livelihoods. There are good examples we can learn from Kenya, Tanzania, Brazil, that Costa Rica, that have gone this way, and then the ecotourism has come to stay. So it's all about proper planning and making sure, like you said, the balance is right. The communities should never be left out. and their concerns should be taken on board in whatever you come out with. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Doctor.
All right. Thank you, Faisal, for chipping in your question. Any other question with everybody here? If you want to ask any question, Miss Valerie, if you have any question, let me know. And then,
yeah, I probably have a couple of questions. One of them, thank you. One of them was regarding ecotourism and the revenue and how it interrelated with the wildlife and the conversation of the conservation of the wildlife. So my question was, so during the pandemic, there was no tourism, nothing happened whatsoever. So there was no revenue coming in. So how were you able to continue the conservation of the conservation, making sure that everything was still fine down there?
Right, that's very, very, very important and a very practical question. In fact, it was quite an initial challenge for us because, like you rightly said, the pandemic reduced the visitation, and once visitation is reduced, it has a ripple effect on the receipts, the revenue that you are going to receive. But the nation as a whole, at the macro level, the government of Ghana really also took these things into consideration and then try to help alleviate this issue. So most of the populace had some poverty alleviation benefits, and so that helped some of the communities that were relying on ecotourism in their vicinity to survive to receive some benefits in that regard, so that to cushion themselves. But thankfully, the story is changing, and then the businesses are bouncing back, and then people are now back to their ecotourism businesses. So the trend, as we are seeing now, is quite encouraging. We are fortunate that hardship period didn't last too long, and then people are bouncing back to the ecotourism business. But I think what the pandemic has also taught us is for us also to emphasize on domestic tourism. It clearly showed us that we cannot always be relying on foreign receipts. If locally we even patronize tourism at the domestic front, the revenue that we can get is enormous. A few analyses that we were doing, that we saw that even domestic tourism, the trajectory of revenue increment may far outweigh what the foreign receipts will come if we put in the right infrastructure and incentive package for the private sector to come in. So now our focus and the focus of the government is on the promotion of domestic tourism, and so that we encourage people living in the country to visit places and during their vacations, to go to places, patronize the office, the tourist office that we have at our places, so that we generate revenue from domestic tourism, because it's people didn't even know many places in Ghana themselves, and then we did a bit of this virtual safari, and then trying to portray what we have locally. And it was amazing the responses we're getting from Facebook and others. So people, are these all these places in Ghana? And people were asking, so they didn't even believe that we have places. So we have to promote and market our tourist destinations locally so that people patronize it. And now we are even getting interest from organizations that want to hold their annual congress and conferences in some of our parks. But we are also limited by accommodation, and now we want to also make sure that we get a lot of infrastructure there so that people can make use of those places. So few good examples like the Zena Lodge at the Muli National Park has bounced back good, and they are doing well. So we need to promote domestic tourism. Yeah. Thank you so much for that intervention.
Oh, thank you for your answer.
All right. Okay. I know Faisal has his hand up. Okay, Faisal, you can go, and then if any other person has a question, you can, take your hand up, and then I'll call you right after Faisal.
Yeah, domestic tourism is very, very good, but my concern has been the road network in Ghana, to be honest. it has always been a challenge. Locals, I mean, this is just a short, survey. The idea of having the stress traveling deter people from, traveling in the first place domestically. I mean, if you travel outside and then you come to Ghana, already, there's a determination to visit places that, you want to see. But domestically, someone living in Accra on a very, and wanting to go to, Muli, thinking about the journey to Tamale, one, and then crossing all the way up there, the road network, it always deter people. And for me, that has been a challenge why domestic tourism is not really pushing forward. This is not a question, it's just a contribution. It has been, and even going to Cancun, for example, you get to Cape Coast and then the road to Cancun has always been, a problem because you have to struggle here and there because the road is, a lot of potholes and, it deters because you visit the first time and you don't want to go again. And it has been a really, really, really tough challenge. So for me, if Ghana should invest in domestic tourism, which is very, very, very good, and will actually push, the revenue up and actually put the country on a good, touristic map. The road network should be addressed really, 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 because it takes, pain and also a lot of curiosity just to go into certain areas in Ghana, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's also a very important point. So perhaps, I mean, I don't know whether with all this motivation to get people to also visit these sites, the commission is also putting things in place to make it easily accessible, like buses or as of course, if you have a free ride and you know that you're going to pay at the entrance, at least it gives you some form of motivation here and there. So maybe hopefully that might come in as we go on. Sorry, I know Miss Valerie said she had a couple of questions and I cut her out. So I'm sorry, Miss Valerie, please come in with your next question.
Okay, so so one of the things is, thank you so very much, Dr. Jama, for educating me and everybody else by educating me, because I don't know much about wildlife and the fauna and ecosystem, because I was born and raised in France, but my dad is from Togo and I still want to be very close to my roots. And so I go to Togo all the time. And so I see a few things. So my question was first, so what are the most endangered species, in Ghana, on land as well as in the sea? Because I know when I went to Togo, my experience last time was there were some fishermen who had just caught the big turtles, and they could not, just take the turtle. They had like some kind of practices where they have to call the police and they were not allowed to touch the turtle. So I wanted to know, what are the practices, in Ghana, and what are the endangered species? And the second thing is, in my mind, I have like, the poachers are the people who come from, the people who are interested in the ivory or in the tusk of the elephant. That's in my mind. So are they? That's what my question was. Are the poachers local, or are they people from foreign countries who come and try to get, right. I mean, it's for money gain, of course, but
right.
Trophy hunting.
Yeah. No, you're right. So, like the last question, for instance, the poachers. So they can come from both within the community and outside the community. Okay. And depending on what they are looking for, like you rightly said, if they are looking for trophies, because these boundaries are more or less international boundaries. We are bordered by Togo, we are bordered by Burkina Faso, we are bordered by Cote d'Ivoire, and most of our parks check. So some come in for commercial gains, for trophies, and then they might not even be Ghanaian. Some are also Ghanaian. So both internal and external people come around. So you are right on that score. The question on endangered species, that's also true. if we go by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, they have what we call the Red List book, where they've categorized different species and their conservation status. Some are endangered, some are extinct, some are threatened. And so there are various categorizations. So like you rightly said, the endangered species are those that if care is not taken, then they are going to move into extinction. And that means they are, but now their numbers are there, but they have been reduced due to some of the activities like poaching or illegal hunting and the like. So depending various, we have different types of animals. We have the mammals, we have the birds. And so every category of animal, we have the level of the list of endangered species. So for instance, if we take some of the animals, the carnivores, not like the lion that we were all struggling to find out whether we have it, it's one of the endangered, if not extinct, in Ghana. So that is it. Then when you come to some of the birds, the avifauna, I think the African grey parrot also, there are some also that are also endangered. It means a lot of their numbers have been taken. So there's a need for us also to protect. So the list can go on and on and on, but I can share the list with you. But we have endangered species for the reptiles, for some frogs are even endangered. We have the endangered species for the birds, endangered species for the mammals, the young. So we can share the list with you. So once we get your contact, we can push it for you to have a list.
Thank you.
And what about plants? Do we have such
good?
We do
have.
well?
We do have. So we also have the plants, and then even some of them we have it under the, I don't know whether you are familiar with CITES, Convention on International Trade on Endangered Species.
No,
CITES, CITES. If you Google it, it's a body, an international body that makes sure that species do not become extinct in various country ranges. And so the list is also there. So the list have been, the animals and plants have been categorized into Appendix 1, Appendix 2, Appendix 3. So the Appendix 1 species are species that are wholly protected, and then there's restriction, you just can't get access to them. Appendix 2, they allow a level of harvest, but with some permit. And then Appendix 3 are in abundance, so you can harvest to some extent. So on the website of the CITES, the list is fully populated, and then you have both plants and the animals. And so we are all guided by that. Every country that has signed onto the CITES goes by the rules of the CITES to protect these animals that have been listed. But if in your country, you also find out that some animals are becoming endangered, you can put it forward to the CITES so that it is considered in the list. Because the list is dynamic. So you can populate then and keep on adding. The infrastructure issue, my brother Faisal read is so true that there's no comment we can give on that. In fact, the government, we've pushed the government, and the minister of the day of tourism is doing very well on that. But I can assure you that the road to Kakum, from Cape Coast to Kakum, has been done. So the next time you visit Ghana, you see it in a marvelous state.
All right,
so
all right.
It is better. And then for the Muli area to at least up to the Fufusu area, it's also done. But even for Muli, we are now looking for options of air travel, because now you can take a flight from Accra to Tamale. Then from Tamale, you can use the road to the Muli National Park. But we are even looking at the possibility of flying direct to the Muli National Park, because we have an airstrip at the Muli National Park. But
really?
But it needs to be upgraded to the level that it can take this smaller aircraft. And we are working on it through a project. If God grants its mercies and it goes through, maybe in the next few years, we will see a different story. But for now, we are still in our state. So we are fighting hard to get some improvement in infrastructure. Is a bane. It's a bane on tourism in Ghana. No two ways about that. But I think that the government of the day is willing to put some extra measures to improve the infrastructure. So let's hope that the policies go through.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a few, podcasts, maybe YouTube videos on this whole narrative on the poaching right?
Right.
And all that, and the fact that some of these people who are, of course, mainly Western commentators, saying that, talking about how bad, within the African continent, people are killing elephants, people are killing. But then the question that I ask is that, who is the cause? Because if a country or if a people have been deprived of certain, various amenities, have been robbed from their mineral, resources and all that, and virtually they have to survive, then they have to get into other activities, of course, which is not, I'm not advocating for people to do that, but then it comes from somewhere. But unfortunately, these people who do some of these documentaries actually paint the picture as if, there is no direction in Africa and in some of these areas, and that, people just get up and then get their guns up and then go hunt these animals, for example, elephants for their ivory, or the hippos and all that. And I sometimes, it's like, it started from somewhere. So if Africa or Africans had been allowed to actually, developed to economically by themselves without this whole colonial era and all that, perhaps by now we would be sharing and, of course, having cheers with, some of the superpowers. But our progress was truncated at a point, and this has had generational consequences to the people. Some of them have to survive and then put themselves in this situation where they have to, go to the forest and kill some of these animals, just to feed themselves and their family. And I mean, again, I'm not supporting people who do that, but then I also get a little bit, mad when I see some of these, documentaries on African wildlife, just saying anything. It's like you're just picking the news from current trends and not really relating it to how the continent has suffered, for some years now. Anyway, just something small to chip in. I know Gaston has his hand raised at a point. Gaston, would you want to ask your question?
Sure.
Hey, you have some zebras behind you. Make sure they don't enter your camera.
No,
all right, let's go.
No.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together. It has been very informative for anybody in the tourism industry or even beyond, learning how we can conserve our wildlife and educating the people about it. I was just sitting here thinking about promotion of domestic tourism. So I'm from Rwanda in East Africa, and I've been in this industry for almost 5 years. But one of the challenges have been prices. Some of the local people think the tourism industry charges higher, and their prices on the standard for Europeans and Americans, not for them. So there is exclusive prices for some people, and some are like, no, I can't afford to pay this money to visit this national park while my kids need to go to school. That's one side of the coin. So another side of the coin is for local people taking tourism services for granted. Feel like the fact you pass by this museum, you feel like you are familiar with that museum.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Oh, wow. I didn't know we have this rich history in our area. And again, that comes with education, starting with the young kids to understand the value of culture, animals, and everything around us. But the pricing one has been so challenging, and it kind of makes sense. You all touched on the issue of poachers. Someone is trying to kill an animal to eat. That person want to pay money to visit the animal.
That's right.
It's logic. So there is
I got you. Yeah.
There is that distinction in understanding and how we approach nature and how we do different things. That means that comes in I've been involved in community tourism, where we bring a tourist to learn how to milk a cow, pay you to use your cow. So with an idea of creating opportunities and incomes for people who live around the touristic sites. So that person feel like living closer to a national park is beneficial, and he feels responsible to protect the nature for the next generation. So there is a lot going on in the industry, but I think having this open conversation will eventually lead to tangible outcomes and different practical ways to address different issues. And my last comment will be also to start looking into African free trade tourism, something to have an open-end way to visit Africa and have cross-continental way. Like it is so painful how Africans, we don't visit other African countries.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And it might be because of political issues, economic issues, but again, do you really want it to? Because we spend money to other stars, there are safe countries we can visit. There is a place where I need to take a bus, where you don't need a visa and anything. But the willingness to do it, it's not something we grew up hearing. Or it's not something we learned in school. It's not something our parents taking us to visit our neighboring countries, to visit museums, to visit. So it's ongoing educational process for all these things we talk about today to be in place and be able to move forward with the caution and sustain our environment. Thank you.
All right, that's good. That's good. I don't know, Dr. Jima, if you have any.
In fact, I agree with Gaston 100%. It's absolute practical and spot on. Like the analysis you were all making too. I agree with you, but you see, it's like demand and supply. Let's take illegal timber. If even people want illegal timber, where do we take them? It's the consumer side, they get it. And so then they will say that you produce it illegally. Then why are they buying it?
Yeah.
So there's so many interesting scenarios that we Africans, Sabatan, we sit down and see how best we can even trade amongst ourselves in a legal way and make sure the benefit stays within the African continent, so that they will rather want some means to come and get it, and then we'll be able to put price value on it. Because when demand is short, supply is short, and demand, you can raise the
demand
price.
goes high.
Exactly, and so we have to value what we have and put value on it, and so that people will appreciate it better. And so I think Gaston was spot on the practical side of what we see when we hunt just to eat, and somebody also want to come and see for aesthetic value. How do you do the price differential?
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting analogy that I think we all have to put it at the back of our head and see how we can work around it. So definitely we who live with the resource, we should benefit from the resource. And so we should find a way that every person can afford the resource, and then we see how we make the price difference.
Does Muli National Park still charge five charges? Do they still charge $5 Ghana for
the locals?
For locals?
Yes, it's still in Ghana. Everywhere you go, the price for the locals is down, and
10 Ghana for foreign.
But now we have revised it upwards.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it has been revised upwards. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
I mean,
if
I might be biased, but I think
we are losing.
I think it's on the lower side, though.
Yes. No, it has been revised upwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, yes, as Gaston said, there are so many things, interesting places that you can visit, but of course, places that you just pass by. I mean, always. Why would you want to go and pay, and watch, right? And of course, the issue of instead of paying my kids' school fees, would I use that money to, go to a museum or something?
Exactly.
So perhaps we can also look into digitization of some of these places, so that people can just sit in their comfort of their houses.
Exactly.
And,
the
plug
virtual
it in.
safaris and
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
African Live Art is waiting for you.
Right. We'll do that.
Right.
And like he said, Gaston said, it's all about disposable income. If I don't have enough disposable income, I'm always careful with my choices.
Yeah.
But if I have disposable income, I can still pay school fees, I can still visit, then you can easily make a choice.
But
like he said, if I always pass by, so you have to add one or two things that will make it extra attractive. Make the person sit there and not just pass by. So it's all about innovation. So if I only pass by, now what can I add? So that if I'm taking my child along, he will learn something extra, not just seeing what is there. So these are the things that we should be looking out for, the innovations that we can add to those places to make it extra unique for people to patronize. That's what it should come.
And of course, over the years, different governments, especially we are talking about Ghana, so I'll use Ghana, different governments have come to power. And as you said before, from 2000 and was it 2010 that you started, doing the calculation? We've
from
had
1990,
we've had quite a number of income from these areas. How are we using those incomes to make this place more attractive to even the locals? Because over here in California, I visit various places, even just just hiking, right? You have like a restroom there that people can just pass through, and you have just simple things that can also make the place more attractive and more attractive for people to just want to go there. So hopefully, of course, I know that you are not the power in government, but hopefully they can hear some of these things and then get us because these things makes a lot of difference. I think Ms. Valerie wanted to ask a question.
Yeah. Actually, I was just going to say that the education system is very important in that nature. When we talked about how do we make people more aware of the wildlife and the flora, or how do we expose it to the people? And I think that's where maybe that both departments, your department and the education system and the education one should actually join forces and allow classes, to from different schools, allow them to come and see, what's going on. And I think again, this is how we you promote it to the population.
Right. Right. I agree with you. I agree. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Faisal had a last question. Oh, two. All right. You can go ahead.
Last two questions. Dr. Jima, sorry. Today we are going to worry you a bit.
Right.
Yeah. So I think you gave a response to a question, and that actually brought up this one. Issue about geopolitical challenges. Have you have the forestry division or wildlife division encountered any challenges of that sort, and how are you able to overcome, not only in Ghana to other countries, but from other countries to Ghana, especially where the forest sort of transcend beyond other countries?
Right. No, I think it stems from the question you raised on climate change. Climate change, one of the negative effects is forced migration. Because when conditions become unbearable in certain parts of the world, they will definitely move to where they think conditions are relatively better. And then if you look at our neighbors around Ghana, and some even far, not our immediate neighbors, we see some semblance of those happening. You see, so I may not mention any particular tribe in per se, but we can see problems from certain region that have become excesses to us because the conditions there, and you can trace the condition because of the effect of climate change. They are experiencing harsh drought. Their animals, they are keeping dying, but they can see next door that there's some greener pastures there. So why don't I move my animals there? And so it's geopolitical to feed and then take the animals back. And in that process, there's conflict because there's always existing community also somewhere which feel threatened by the movement of those people and their animals to that part of. So it has caused a lot of upheavals. And then at the governmental level, government and president are talking. And let's see, once we're in the same continent, how best can we do so that one's movement does not negatively affect the other? So there are quite a lot of examples that we can give. So the cattle ranching, the Fulani's issue, and there are so many things that we can, but it's all because they also feel threatened wherever they are, and then they have to move to make sure that they survive. It's like somebody said, it's a question of survival. So when that happens, you defy all logic, and the first thing you think about, how do I survive? So whether somebody is going to be affected negatively, you care less, you see. So that is why we're saying that the whole entire ecosystem should be looked at, so that what affects somebody negatively might easily spill over to yours. So don't think it's not happening in my country, so I'm okay. It will just get to you because the global climate change is affecting all of us. So it's something that we're talking about strongly.
Okay, thank you very much for that. The next one is about education. Why is there any measures, or are there any measures, put in place in terms of the language? This has been my border. Why is English the only language, to receive visitors, especially when we are thinking about domestic tourism?
Right.
I am from the south, and I want to go to the I'm from the south, and I want to go to an interesting place within my locality, and I visit there, and it's English. Or I'm from the north, and I go to and it's English. How is it going to be interesting? For example, I want to learn about fauna, education about fauna, something related to folklore about how leaves or even animals play a very crucial role in the culture. And aspect like that can be interpreted in the local language and actually made interesting enough.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think my colleague Cornelia, they have done a lot of work on that. We have a PR unit attached to the wildlife division, and so that go out on outreach, education outreach, and most of our animals and the posters that we have their scientific name and we have their local names as well. So we mix the two together, and so that once they are having their formal education, they also have to understand traditionally the local names also. And so it's something that we mix them up so that when we go to the communities and the schools, we teach them both the scientific and the local names. So sometimes the local name, even that community know, is what we use. Because you may have a leopard or whatever, maybe you call some Osibo dancer, but when you go to the north, it's a different name. So we encourage that we have all the local names that are applicable to that animal on the poster, so that we explain. So on our small way, these are the things that we are doing to make sure that the locals understand what we are doing.
Right.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Most grateful for joining in today. We'll still have the conversation going, and definitely connects to Dr. Jema, hopefully to connect to African live art.
Right. We'll definitely will come on board.
Definitely. So that, wherever you are from the world, you can just log on, order for a class, and then you can have more than just one site in an hour. I mean, how wonderful that will be when you have, you're touring Africa right in your in your living room. I think that would be something that we'll also have to add to expanding the local, or sorry, I know Dr. Sarah didn't want me to use local before, so I expanding the the expanding tourism with the no, I'm stuck with words. With the indigenous, if I can use that word.
Right.
So yes, again, this is African Live Arts. We connect Africa to the world, and you can visit African Live Arts at www.africanliveart.com. You can request for a class, and then we'll be there to serve you as much as possible. Next week, again, we're going to have a discussion on Kwame Nkrumah's contribution to art and any other area that he actually pushed during his time. So that is going to be a very interesting topic. Hopefully we're going to get Dr. Sarah back on the channel. We're going to have Terry Bright Fosu also back on the channel. And it's also September 21st, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's birthday. So we would want to do various things to honor him and some of the contributions that he made to art forms in Ghana and of course in Africa. So join us again next week. The time the time perhaps will be around 1 p.m. Pacific time and 8 p.m. GMT. So, but I'm going to be sending the flyers on our Facebook channel, Instagram, YouTube, and then to get everybody informed. So everybody can join in. If you want to join it, you can just send me, DM me on our, Facebook. When you type in africanlivearts.com, sorry, African Live Arts on Facebook, you'll definitely see us, and then you can connect to us. So thank you very much, Dr. Jima. Do you have any last words? And Miss Cornelia, you have any last words for us? To encourage people to come, because now, COVID situation is going down. So definitely, we have to get some people coming in, some collaborations here and there, and get our economic gains up with tourism in Ghana.
So Connie, if you can give it a shot.
Hello.
Hey, yes. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. We're open to business. Just with a little teaser as Doug gave and myself, there are a lot to see in Ghana. There are lots of lessons to learn. You can even go on a trail just to learn about medicinal plants. What about that? You end up being a herbalist.
All right. That's great.
Yeah, it is interesting to be in our forest in Ghana. There are times people tell us we come to Ghana, we don't see animals. It is true. It isn't they are not there, they are here. But then if you look at our vegetation, we have lots of cover. If you look at our savanna, it's not just coastal savanna, it is woodland savanna. That is why in places like up north, Muli National Park, Bele Resource Reserve, and the forests around these areas, people can harvest rosewood. People can harvest other timber species because it is woodland savanna. So we plead with our tourists coming to Ghana to have the patience to see the animals. Yeah, we definitely know where to take you so that you have the field day that you're looking out for when you're coming to our forest. And as I told you, let's go to the country, Kakum National Park or Ankasa, and we'll love to see what the hunters were doing in those days. And on that note, I'll say thank you for the platform giving me. I'm most grateful.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Right. And any last words from Dr. Jima? Yes.
No, thank you. I think it's a pleasure meeting you guys on this platform. And I think it's a wonderful initiative. We should all put our shoulders to the wheel. And I'm sure we are going to make a global impact. It's a good work, Sofrata, you are doing. Keep it up and let's keep in touch.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Valerie and the rest. Let's keep in touch. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so thank you very much and most grateful for joining us. And I will say bye-bye to everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye to